My wife had just suffered a devastating stroke. The doctors couldn't tell me if she'd ever speak again. As I sat alone in the hospital waiting room, I overheard a quiet conversation that made no sense, until an elderly man stood up, walked past me, and slipped a folded note into my jacket pocket. He never looked back. When I opened the note, my hands started shaking. 7 handwritten words were enough to change my life forever. Don't trust the people already inside. My name is Daniel Carter, and until that terrible Tuesday, I believed my family had survived every storm life could throw at us. My wife, Emily, was only 46 when she suddenly collapsed in our kitchen. One moment she was making coffee, the next she couldn't move her right arm or speak a single word. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Doctors rushed her into emergency surgery while I sat frozen in the hospital waiting room, praying that she'd survive. Hours passed. Every minute felt like an eternity. Around me were worried families, crying children, exhausted nurses, and the constant sound of hospital announcements. Then an elderly man quietly sat beside me. He looked to be in his late 70s, wearing an old brown jacket and holding a walking cane. He didn't say a word. Instead, he watched everyone entering and leaving the intensive care unit. After nearly 20 minutes, 2 well-dressed people walked into the hallway. I recognized them immediately. My wife's younger brother, Michael, and his wife, Susan. They hadn't visited us in nearly 3 years, yet here they were. They didn't notice me because I was sitting behind a vending machine wall. Instead, they stopped only a few feet away. Michael whispered, "If she doesn't recover, everything becomes much easier." Susan answered, "He doesn't know about the property papers." My heart nearly stopped. Property papers? What were they talking about? Before I could move closer, the elderly man beside me slowly stood up. He walked directly past me. As he passed, he quietly slipped something into my jacket pocket. Without saying a single word, he walked out of the hospital. Confused, I unfolded the small piece of paper. It read, "Don't trust the people already inside. Room 304, Locker B." Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. At first, I thought it was some cruel joke. But curiosity won. I found room 304. It had once belonged to an elderly patient who had already been discharged. Near the nurse's station was an old storage locker labeled B. The receptionist said no one had claimed its contents. Inside was a sealed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photocopies of legal documents, property transfers, bank statements, emails, and one shocking letter. It revealed that years earlier, Emily's late father had secretly transferred ownership of his family estate entirely to Emily after discovering that Michael had forged his signature on several financial documents. The only reason Michael hadn't been prosecuted was because Emily begged her father to keep the family together. She never told me. The documents also showed Michael had been trying for years to convince Emily to sign away her inheritance. She always refused. Now, while she lay unconscious, he believed she could no longer stop him. I immediately contacted a lawyer whose business card was clipped inside the envelope. Within hours, emergency legal protections were filed. Every property transfer was frozen. Hospital security was informed that no paperwork concerning Emily could be signed without my attorney present. The next morning, Michael arrived carrying several documents. He smiled sympathetically. "I'm just trying to help with the paperwork." But when hospital administration informed him everything had been legally frozen, his smile disappeared instantly. He became angry. He demanded to know who told me. I simply replied, "Someone who believed the truth deserved a chance." 3 days later, Emily finally opened her eyes. She couldn't speak yet, but tears rolled down her face when I showed her the envelope. She slowly squeezed my hand. She understood. Months later, after recovering through rehabilitation, Emily finally told me everything. The mysterious old man wasn't a stranger. He had been her father's lifelong friend. Years earlier, Emily's father had entrusted him with those documents. His instructions were simple. "If anything ever happens to my daughter, make sure the truth reaches the right person." He had quietly waited, watching, protecting a promise made decades earlier. Because real loyalty doesn't always make noise. Sometimes, it simply waits for the exact moment it's needed most. Michael eventually admitted to years of financial fraud. During the legal investigation, the court ordered him to repay stolen funds, and the remaining family assets stayed exactly where Emily's father had intended. As for the elderly man, we searched everywhere. Hospital records showed he had visited another patient that same day, but no one knew where he went afterward. Emily often says her father couldn't be there in person, so he sent the only man he trusted to finish what he started. Even now, Every time I see that folded note locked safely inside our family album, I'm reminded that hope sometimes arrives from the most unexpected stranger. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms or capes. Sometimes they're quiet old men sitting unnoticed in a hospital waiting room, keeping a promise made many years ago. If that note had never reached my pocket, I might have lost far more than money. I could have lost my wife's final wish and everything her father worked to protect. Never underestimate the power of truth, because sooner or later, it always finds its way into the right hands.